to this. Alrighty, welcome to all of those who have just joined us for our last evening together with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Siksastakam. And we're going to be going through verses 4 or 5 to the end today. And as we have been doing in the past, we'll also do a mantra meditation for a few minutes, which I hope you will like. And so I'll read the verse 5. We're going to read each of the verses together, although I'll read verse 5 and then speak on it and then go to the others. But if you have your Siksastakam, please join me in saying the Sanskrit and the English. So verse 5. Ai nanda tanuja kinkaram patitamam vishame bhavam buddho kripaya tava pada pankaja stita duli sadrisham vichintaya. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. So this verse elaborates on the phrase Vijavadhu Jivanam in the first verse, and it corresponds with the stage of development of love of Godhead called Asakti. In Asakti, the chanter comes to the final end of karma's influence. So in the last stage, in Nishta, karma's stranglehold was lessened, and it was the chanter was, free of distractions, very focused. But now in Asakti, karma's stranglehold is completely lessened. It's gone. Now it's interesting. Prabhupada translates Vijavadhu Jivanam as, I'm sure everyone's familiar because we heard it so often, the life of all transcendental knowledge. So this is to say that chanting Hare Krishna is the very soul of spiritual knowledge. The chanting of the holy names give meaning, sustenance, vitality to true knowledge. And if we have true vidya or true knowledge, we become conscious of our position and relationship with Krishna. The holy name itself awakens infallible spiritual knowledge in our hearts, and the holy name enables us to make our way to Krishna. So achieving the highest attainment in human life is real knowledge, and that knowledge is revealed in our hearts. It's not attained or garnered by just studying or something. It actually has to be revealed, and Krishna comes to us in his holy names to reveal himself to us. Now, what's interesting is the word Vadu in Vijavadhu Jivanam literally means bride. So Prabhupada didn't use the word bride in his translation, but some translations speak about the bride named knowledge. So who is the bride named knowledge? What could Lord Chaitanya mean by using this word? So let's look at a couple of places where we might get hints, and then we can draw our conclusions. So in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it said that Krishna is the master of the gopis, and they are the potencies of the knowledge that is love characterized by compassion. So this reminds us of Krishna's statement in the Gita that real knowledge is actually bhakti, or loving devotion. That's how he described real knowledge. Real knowledge is bhakti. And in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami describes that the highest knowledge is the glory of devotion to Krishna. So that's confirmed there. Then to look at, kind of like reflect on what was said in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad about the gopis, in Krishna Sandarbha, Sri Jiva Goswami tells us that Krishna's queens in Dwarka are embodiments of Krishna's internal energy, and specifically, they're direct embodiments of Vidya. In other words, they're personified wisdom. And above the queens in Dwarka, the gopis in Vraja are the highest culmination of wisdom. So they show us that the highest culmination of wisdom is love. So see, we're starting to develop a little picture here. So the gopis, they're the embodiments of the highest wisdom in the form of the highest supreme Lord. Such vidya or a knowledge is really the source of the possibility of knowing Krishna authentically. In other words, Krishna is revealed to us by those who love him, and thus they love him and they're associating with him, so they know him personally and they can reveal him to us. So by the statements that Krishna's queens and the gopis are knowledge, it appears that actually knowledge is a bride. And what? If we follow their exemplary behavior, we'll be given access to the highest knowledge. Krishna will reveal himself to us. And Lord Chaitanya is emphatic. He asks us to hear him. Krishna comes to you in his holy name. He's given you the way to achieve all knowledge, the highest wisdom, that is pure love of God. And we can look to the example, especially of the gopis, of their surrender to Krishna and their love, to get an indication of this is real knowledge, right? So, as I said, this verse elaborates on the stage of a Shakti, and in this stage, the chanter becomes fully attached to Sri Krishna. He becomes our all in all. So, in the previous stage of Nishta, we were attached to the practices of Bhakti, but in Asakti, we're attached to Krishna himself. So the attachment and the affection is growing for the object of love. And as it's growing, as we're gonna see in these other verses, it's going to be revealing our eternal relationship with Krishna, our eternal identity. So Asakti is the final stage of sadhana bhakti. As you recall, there's 3 stages of development of love of Godhead: sadhana bhakti, and it encompasses several stages, then bhava bhakti, then prema bhakti. So Asakti is the final stage of sadhana. Our practice following rules and regulations is successful. We've come to spontaneous devotion, unhindered by anything material. And from here, we'll be moving into Bhava Bhakti, which is another significant stage in our development. So it's described in Asakti, the commentators described how we used to bring our mind back from material topics to focus on Krishna. Now, in Asakti, our mind naturally focuses on Krishna, and we kind of have to bring it to the practical matters of life. So Bhakti Devi Sri Radha, Krishna's eternal consort, we want to introduce her at this point in the conversation because as the Supreme Gopi, as the full embodiment of all knowledge, we should realize that Srimati Radharani responds to our sincere chanting. She destroys ignorance, she fills us with knowledge, and she eradicates all unwanted desires. In the Bhagavatam, Krishna tells his friend Uddhava that if we put medical ointment on a diseased eye, we're going to gradually see more clearly. And he uses that as an example to point out that when we're purified by hearing and chanting about Krishna, we'll gradually be able to see the underlying reality more clearly. And that vision will embolden us on our undertaking and give us determination. So in this verse here, Mahaprabhu calls out to Nanda's Tanuja, or Nanda's son Krishna, and he asks him for service in prema in his abode. He says, please consider me, please take me into your shelter. I'm your servant. I have no other shelter. I have no other aspirations. Here I find myself in adverse circumstances. I'm distressed without you. Please take me. I require your special mercy. And then he further says, I am the cause of my suffering and separation from you, but now I found shelter in you, and now I understand there's no other hope. So please allow me to chant your holy name purely. And as we heard last week, again, Gora is speaking for us. He's speaking to us. We can pray his prayer. Of course, we can compose our own prayers, but we can also repeat the prayers of others. And might the best prayer be the one that is spoken by Krishna himself in the role of his devotee? Maybe. So, chanting from the heart invokes the presence of the sweet absolute, as we've heard repeatedly. The chanter at this stage now experiences the mantra is identical to Radha and Krishna, and they experience them as loving personal beings. The more we connect with them as persons, the more our exploitative ego will transform into a serving ego and seek to serve them. And as it does, we begin to receive some hints about our spiritual identity and relationship with the divine couple. And of course, this encourages spontaneous and continuous meditation on Krishna that's going on during the Shakti. So our desire to enter the dance of reciprocal love grows so strong that we may even feel hopeless at times, because what are we faced with? We have the prospect of achieving this amazing goal, this incredible ideal, but it seems so impossible. There's such a great distance between me and the infinite. So my successful completion of my journey requires the grace of the infinite. And as we relate to Krishna, what we see is that we begin to understand that the grace that we require that comes from Krishna is Krishna responding to our love. He's surrendering to our love, and he's filling us with the determination to continue, the taste to go on. So we know that love is the only worthy objective, and we also know that Krishna is this perfect object of our love, and he is the supreme reciprocator of love. Therefore, in the reciprocal exchange, our desire to participate in the drama of divine love keeps on increasing and increasing. Yeah. So let's go to verse 6. I'm going to read the Sanskrit and English as before. Nayanam galad ashru dharaya, vadanam gadgadara gada rudhaya gira, pulakarni chitam vapukada, tavanama grahane bhavishyati. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? So these are the manifestations of pure love, what happens to the body when the soul attains pure love of Krishna. And this verse is an elaboration on Nandam Buddhivardhanam, which means experiencing an ever-increasing ocean of bliss. So here, Lord Chaitanya is giving voice to what the ever-increasing ocean of bliss does to us. And this verse expresses some feelings of the advanced stage of Baba Bhakti. Pure love of God is so powerful that it manifests in pronounced symptoms in the physical body. We can only imagine, but hearing it gives some indication. And it's like, I don't know about you, but when I hear this, I just think, yes, one day I want to love Krishna so much that these feelings well up in my heart to such intensity that they manifest physically. I can cry real tears of love. So one thing the commentators also explain is that Baba Bhakti doesn't occur just due to a lapse of time, but it occurs through our full surrender. So it's not like I'll just be at the practice for X number of years and for sure I'll come to Baba Bhakti. No, you can come to Baba Bhakti today, this moment right now, but it requires full surrender, a full offering of ourself. When we give our Atma fully to Krishna, then pure love awakens. So it can be just in a single second of proper service to Krishna or his names, which is free of personal desires or offenses, and that can remove all material impressions from unlimited lifetimes. The holy name is so powerful. So in other words, we can ascend to these higher and higher levels in a moment if we offer ourselves and seva purely and without or with proper intention. Chanting is such a beautiful way to use our body in service, isn't it? We chant using the tongue, we hear using the ears, we hold the sacred Tulsi Mala with our hands, and we can use our eyes to look at the mantra or picture of Krishna. By this easy, really simple use of our body, we're able to engage in sadhana to make our hearts ready for Krishna's descent. It's really quite amazing when you think about it. We can use the body to connect with God. This is phenomenal. And Krishna has commented in the Bhagavatam about this, and he says it's amazing that you can use the temporary body to serve him and achieve a permanent, eternal goal. And in that verse, it's like Krishna saying, so I don't understand why you're waiting. What is holding you back? Another aspect of Bhava Bhakti is that the heart has completely softened. And it is the melting of the heart that creates those tears, of streams of tears that Lord Chaitanya talks about. It's the heart is completely melting in love for Krishna. And these symptoms become continue to become tensified in Bhava Bhakti. And in one of your handouts, I think it's the Odo Shraddha handout, on the very last page, I've listed, or no, the second to last page, I've listed the symptoms of Bhava. So you can look at that. I'm not going to go through them all right now, but that's a clear list of what's described as the symptoms of Bhava Bhakti. So here, the creeper of devotion that was planted in our hearts by Guru, and in the beginning of Shraddha and Sadhusanga, it's now budding and bearing flowers and fruit. And it's described poetically that the scent of these pure emotions of love for Krishna perfume the entire heart, and they're able to attract who? Madhusudana Krishna, the nectar seeker, whose eyes roll about as he tastes the love of his devotees. It's a very beautiful image of him. Now, it's described that Bhava Bhakti is actually the rays of prema, that prema is about to appear before it fully manifests. Ecstatic symptoms of love, of bhava, appear in the mind and the body, and we're at a very advanced stage of chanting. Perhaps a stage that we can get to in this life. We'll see. First, we have to get to Nishta. And at this stage, the chanter will begin to experience some of the bodily transformations Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talks about here. You know, when we hear in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear very extreme cases of prema manifesting in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body, and it's said that is only that's not manifest in sadhakas, that's manifest in Krishna's body only. So, but still, it gives us the idea. And there are 8 signs of ecstasy, and they are what are they? The tears, perspiration, change of bodily color, fainting, purpulation of the bodily hairs, trembling, stammering, and temporary paralysis. So we can imagine the intensity of the emotions that would generate these symptoms. And sometimes for the sadhaka, just 1 or 2 symptoms will appear, and sometimes many, and the devotee loses consciousness, as we hear in some of the texts. So, as we know, these ecstatic symptoms arise from a direct connection with Krishna, and we can recognize these exalted states when they appear in someone, but we don't claim that that person is in Bhava Bhakti unless they also are manifesting long-term positive changes in their character, behavior, their qualities, their attitude. In other words, a person in Bhava will be decorated with shining qualities like humility, forbearance, compassion, peace, joy, unconditional love. The physical symptoms can be imitated, but the transformation of a heart that manifests in a changed person, that can't be mimicked. So we can see in the practitioner at Baba Bhakti, if we ever encounter a practitioner on Baba Bhakti, that they've become superhumanly successful at controlling his or her mind and senses, and they're no longer interested in chasing anything of this world, as we heard about last week. So in Baba Bhakti, it's said that the chanter is chanting the Shuddha Nam, pure name. And sometimes an example is given to demonstrate how to spiritualize our mind and body, which is what has happened in Baba Bhakti. The mind and body have become largely spiritualized. The example is given when you take an iron rod and you put it right into a fire and you hold it there until it becomes hot as it can. Then it acts like fire and it can set other items on fire. So when the soul immerses herself in the internal energy of Krishna through the practices of bhakti, that's what bhakti is, the internal energy of Krishna. The practices are to immerse ourselves in that internal energy. And when we do, we receive an ingress of spiritual energy. That ingress of spiritual energy is spiritualizing the senses, spiritualizing the mind, the consciousness, and removing, it's, as we heard, the reason why it cleanses the heart. Now, also described in Baba Bhakti is that this point in the development of love of God, the sadhaka realizes his or her identity in the spiritual world. In the previous stage, there had been indications and heart inclinations of the devotee, but now sometimes the devotee actually experiences himself, herself in the lila. So in other words, at this stage, Krishna grants the devotee's desire and gives him or her a position in his realm. So although the devotee is safe in where they are now established in their bhakti, they still pray for further promotion into prema and Krishna's direct service, because right now they're not in the lila. They have some realization of the lila, but they're not in the lila where they can directly serve Krishna. So in this verse, this sixth verse, we hear Mahaprabhu crying out to his dear friends Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy in the mood of Radha's desperate mood. And this mood shows us that the only price to pay for prema is lolyam, or great and intense eagerness. And this intense eagerness is what's coming out in Lord Chaitanya's prayer here. No matter what the cost, lolyam means no matter what the cost, I will do whatever it takes to attain Krishna. So the philosophy, perspective, the understandings that we cultivated intellectually come alive in Baba Bhakti. The whole spiritual world becomes alive to us. The people, Radha and Krishna, become real to us. And the holy names, even at this stage, keep us in good company with the divine couple in the holy name. And they continue to intensify our desire to engage in direct service, which is required for prema to develop. Baba has to thicken and thicken more. So verse 7 is Yugaitam nimeshena chakshusha pravishayitam shunjaitam jagat sarvam Govinda virahename. Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain. and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. Oh, should we feel that way about being absent from Krishna? So this verse is an elaboration on the Pratipadam verse phrase in verse 1, and it tells us that when we reach Bhava and Prema, every moment becomes ecstatic. Even feelings of intense separation are the sweetest bliss. It's a little difficult for us to understand, but the acharyas have repeatedly told us not to equate what appears to be the suffering of separation to suffering of this world, because the separation in the intense separation, one does have connection with Krishna. Now, what's interesting is for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this verse corresponds to what he calls a second stage of bhava. So he considers this verse the second stage of bhava. And Rupa Goswami says this verse corresponds to Prema Bhakti, the stage beyond Bhava Bhakti. But although the commentators tell us slightly different things, it's actually difficult to distinguish Bhava from Prema. And perhaps that's why there's a difference of a statement here. But one way to consider these differences is that between what is what Bhava, when Bhava attains constancy, it becomes Prema. So they look very, very close. It's just that it becomes constant and intense. So when emotions are matured and they're constant and they reach a higher intensity, then this level of, or second level of Bhava Bhakti is known as Prema. Now, just before this verse, Gora said, "Without love of Krishna, my life is useless. Therefore, I pray you accept me as your servant and give me ecstatic love of God." Then in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, right after this verse, Lord Chaitanya says, "Three worlds have become void because of separation from you, Govinda." And on this verse, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that this is the confidential secret of Gaura's pastimes. When Krishna adopts the sentiment of a devotee, he shows us the way to approach him, and that is in feelings of separation, which is called vipralamba. And Radha's love for Krishna is characterized very strongly by feelings of being separated from her beloved. These feelings, though, are followed by increased jubilation when she's in his presence. So what we're told is that separation increases the intensity of love of the chanter who pines for her beloved. Now, pursuing Radha's love, some poetically say that Lord Chaitanya rode the waves of separation. He wanted to show us that we're brought closer to our beloved when our heart simply aches in separation. When pure love begins to shine in our hearts, the need to be with our object of love reaches a fever pitch. And that is a desirable state because it is when Krishna is called to us. Krishna becomes completely charmed by the chanter who is transformed in these ways, and he cannot ignore love's call. He is Rasaraj Krishna. He must respond to love. He is love himself, and he is so attracted to love that he has no choice but to respond. So after separation, or when we fully develop deep feelings of separation, there is contact with Krishna. And we can rest assured. Right now we are separated from Krishna, but through our chanting, we'll be united with him. Mahaprabhu has made that promise to us, so we can tightly hold his instructions and follow them carefully. Now, one thing about separation is interesting is that some people compare prema to a vast ocean, the vast ocean of nectar, they say. And the way we can enter into what is almost an unapproachable ocean is that low tide. It's like at high tide, it's harder to enter into an ocean. At low tide, you can just wade in and then go deep into the ocean and swim. So what we're finding here in Mahaprabhu's expression is what's called the low tide of that is separation. So it all the acharyas agree that the only way we can enter into prema is through these feelings of separation, that we our love for Krishna increases to the point where we cannot tolerate separation from him any longer. We must have his direct association. So that's where the intense longing comes in. Krishna wants us to want him. He wants us to want him and nothing else. So we don't need to fear those feelings of separations. We do want to cultivate them. And by this process and we'll gradually come to understand that those feelings of separation from Krishna are actually extraordinary spiritual happiness, because there is a union in separation. In one song, as I was looking to prepare for this class, in one song about this point, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I consider the ecstasies of meeting Radha and Krishna and the agonies of separation from them to be exactly the same. It's inconceivable, but this is the acharya who's experiencing them, right? Union with Krishna and separation from him is exactly the same. It's love. It's great exaltation. And in one sense, it's kind of easy to understand, because since Krishna is the personification of joy, however we're connected with him in his presence or feeling separation from him, because the meditation is on him, our presence is with him, then it's joyful. And it's described that when these feelings of separation are intensified to the point like what we hear with Lord Chaitanya in this verse, that now prema is entering. What's interesting also, as I was thinking about this, is that at each stage of sadhana, there's a kind of lamentation that we hear. There's an echo of lamentation. So we'll lament about our lack of progress, or our desire to become more humble, or develop certain qualities, or the feelings of separations as we're talking about. So those, as long as the lament is healthy, it is good to lament. It will impel our progress, as long as we're not discouraged by it. But if we factually know that we want to improve and where we want to improve, then it's appropriate to lament and to feel separating from Krishna, which is real. So there's this lamentation that we repeatedly hear about in these verses. They are spiritual if they propel us forward in our practice. And so much so that the practice becomes an immovable force in our lives, right? So we can acknowledge that we've been thrown a life-saving rope, and now we just have to do our part. We've received blessings from the other side through the mercy of devotees. It's said that when we meet devotees, it's a sign that our material existence is coming to an end. So you can rest assured that having met devotees, doing some chanting, or taking up a regular practice of chanting, hearing and chanting, your material existence is coming to an end. That's the sign of it. So, we should cultivate these feelings of separation, but what we do instead of, I don't know if you experience this, but instead of feeling separation from Krishna, we experience a different type of separation. We'll put down our beads, or we don't pick up a book, or we don't take up a service. So in whatever ways we don't remain connected to the angas of bhakti, to the practices of bhakti, we're separating ourselves from all the potential that Lord Chaitanya is giving us. So for some reason, this is just misfortune. And we have the example with Radha and Krishna, they cannot bear separation between them. They are constantly and always, whenever they're not together, they're constantly arranging to close the gap between them, to seek a meeting. So this is the desire we're to cultivate. We to actively always look how we can close the gap between us and Krishna. So our own future meeting, a meeting that is possible, is established by chanting the Maha Mantra. So we'll continually attempt to stop our separation from the practices of bhakti, whether that separation is internal or external or both. And so let's go to verse 8, our last verse today. Ashlishava pararatam panashtumam adarshanam marma hatam karotuva yata tata va bidhatu lampato mat prananatas tu sa eva navara. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Before I go on, it's just as I was reading this, it reminded me, I heard recently that this word marma in the verse here, marma indicates a sensitive point on the body that if you push the right point, you push it hard enough, you can kill somebody. So Lord Chaitanya is using this marma point that is, it's so intense it could kill you, but still Krishna remains his worshipful Lord unconditionally. So this verse corresponds with the phrase Sarvatma Snapanam, which means that the holy name bathes all souls. And for Bhakti Vinod Thakur, this verse embodies the stage of prema. And if we take Srila Rupa Goswami's perspective, then this final verse of the Siksastakam we're hearing about is actually a further development of prema. And in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sri Rupa Goswami says that Baba Bhakti, well, let's get to a definition. I'm trying to get to a definition of prema, since this is a stage that is, Rupa Goswami is saying is an intensification of prema. So in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami says that Baba Bhakti so excessively affects the heart right from the beginning that it melts into a sublime salve of love. So this is one definition of prema, and there's a further definition of prema that says that the highest sentiments of divine bliss, which generates an intense desire for Krishna, is called prema. So let's hear that definition again. Prema is the highest sentiments of divine bliss which generate an intense desire for Sri Krishna. So what this verse is giving us is the highest mood of devotional surrender. If we really meditate on this verse, it's really incomprehensible for us, or it sounds pretty scary to come to this level that Krishna can do anything to me and I remain his, however he chooses to deal with me. So what's beautiful is that the commentators have said that this verse is spoken by Srimati Radharani herself. This is a verse spoken by Srimati Radharani, and it corresponds with a state called Mahabhava. That's the most elevated state of prema. So we just heard this incredible definition of prema, and we're going to now take it to even greater heights. That this Mahabhava is well beyond, it's inconceivable, and the highest reach of Mahabhava is an emotion that only Srimati Radharani experiences. So what's beautiful is how we've been gifted with the revelation of this exalted feeling that she experiences. And knowing that Srimati Radharani experiences Mahabhava, it's described that Mahabhava manifests in different ways. One way is called Mada, which is like a delirium by overwhelming love for Krishna, and all external awareness fades. Another is called Mohana, where Radha faints in extreme bewilderment because of being so absorbed in Krishna. Another is called Divon, which is divine madness, which is when Srimati Radharani speaks and acts in ways that reveal the special nature of love, the incredible depth of her divine love. And there's a further one called Chitra Jalpa that we hear about in the Bhagavatam, in the song to the bumblebee. It's Chitra Jalpa is a speech that is seemingly incoherent, and it includes different emotions: lamentation, anger, joy, despair. They're all directed to Krishna, and they're swirling around, and this comes out as incoherent speech. So these are all manifest in Srimati Radharani. So by giving us this verse, Lord Chaitanya is allowing us entry into Sri Radha's exceptional transcendental emotions. And we don't find this glimpse anywhere else in the spiritual canon, our own texts, or in other religious traditions. So it's only by Lord Chaitanya's extreme kindness that we become witnesses to the highest extent of love of God, just nearly inconceivable. In this verse, it's said that what Sri Radha is saying is, my Lord Krishna has become indifferent to me just to test my love. My friends say, better to disregard him. And in response, then Srimati Radharani speaks this verse to her friends. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has written that although as Radha thought like that, the natural characteristics of her deep love became manifest from her pure heart, and that's why she said this verse. So yeah, maybe we can just, I thought let's just meditate on the verse one more time before going on. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. So, although Krishna causes Radha pain and separation from him, she can't die because that would cause him pain. So she remains in this selfless, one-pointed love for Krishna. And this is showing us the secret of prema. It is a love that is fully selfless. It is completely one-pointed, and it only seeks Krishna's pleasure. We can tolerate our own situation for Krishna's happiness, and that actually can be an ocean of joy. So Radha's extreme disposition, this is what makes her the best lover of Krishna. We can't match her dedication, but we can serve her. So we should know that Radha responds to anyone who chants her beloved's name. She likes to hear Krishna's name. And therefore, we can imagine that we can easily garner Radha's attention and affection by chanting Krishna's holy names. How? With attention. If we just give some attention to chanting Krishna's names, Radha will be pleased. And in speaking about a mood that we can embrace while chanting, there's this description of a small bird called Chataka. And it's described, and we don't know if this is a real bird or if this is just a poetic description, but this Chataka bird only drinks rainwater. It will never drink any other type of water on the earth, not a river, fountain, lake. It only will take rain water. And even on the verge of death, this little bird will hold its beak open, hoping against hope for rain. Nothing else will satisfy the Chataka. So this example is often shared to show how a devotee should always be waiting in expectation for the rainwater of Krishna's love and no other love. And that's why Radha says here, I await your mercy. I have no other shelter. And in that spirit, in Radha's spirit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recited this verse. And we're told that as soon as he did, he felt like Srimati Radharani, which means that here, as this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani, and it came from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that this indicates that he has been successful in fulfilling the internal reasons why he came to the world, which we heard about in the first class. He's fully entered into Srimati Radharani's mood and tasted what she experiences. He wanted to know the full glories of Radha's love. He wanted to experience that himself. He had never been able to experience that in Krishna Lila, but witnessing the amazing qualities of her love, he wanted to experience how she relishes and what he feels. So this verse, having come from Srimati Radharani, tells us that he has now plumbed the depths of the truths, and he shares his exploration in these precious verses of the Siksastakam. Really, we try to appreciate that he's given us a really most valuable treasure here. He has expressed the development of divine love and the highest feelings of love from the perspective of Radha, which is the perspective of a servant, which is us. And in this way, he's opened a portal for us into our own eternal prospect, and he's invited us to enter. And as we meditate on taking up this invitation by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we should take special notice that we've been told that it is by serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his brother Nityananda Ram that we can enter into a relationship with Radha Krishna. We don't go directly, we go through Gora and Nitai. We require their blessings. And what do they say? Both of them, Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they say, we're pleased when you take Krishna's holy names. Therefore, all the transcendental personalities wish us well in our chanting journey, and with their support, all possibilities are available to us. Our full prospect in transcendence lies right here in the holy name of Krishna. So while any sacrifice brings us closer to the absolute, the offering of our very self endears us to Krishna more than sacrifices of our possessions or our mental attitudes or other things. So we can hold this ideal very clearly in our mind as we navigate life and its complexities and our challenges. As we face these things, we should try to align our choices that we make today to this state of pure devotion as best we can. We're not there yet, but we should hold this as our ideal without any self-berating or how fallen we are or how far away we are, but with a genuine, healthy lament that I want to make progress. I want to come into Krishna's direct service to please him. And when we fall short, and we will, we just try again with patience and determination and enthusiasm to adjust ourselves in our relationship with Bhakti and Krishna. And one thing we can do also is as we're reading the different texts, we can pay attention to the accounts of other surrendered souls because they will inspire our own project. So it's described that in Prema Bhakti, absorption in one's spiritual identity is complete. Therefore, the devotee will be absorbed in one of the 5 possible relationships with Krishna, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. Prema is expressed through the rasas of neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. In Shantaras, or neutrality, one has affection by awe, by exultation. And when this affection increases, the attraction to Krishna deepens to dasya rasa, or servitorship. That's a relationship that's characterized by a desire to serve, to be Krishna's humble servant. And when the desire to serve is deepened and fortified with unflinching trust and confidence, it's called pranaya, which is the very essence of sakya rasa, or friendship. The relationship with Krishna is very confident, it's playful, and it's a relationship of absolute unbreakable trust. And when love is colored with a concern and care for Krishna's protection and well-being, as we know, it's called vatsalya rasa, or parental love. And when the essences of all the rasas are present and intensified and perfected, it's called madhurya rasa, or conjugal love for Krishna. And that love is characterized by selfless love and a willingness to give everything to Krishna, as described by Srimati Radharani in this verse. So when we arrive at the final stage of prema, we're given spiritual senses and a body fit to live in the spiritual world and engage in one of these rasas with Krishna. Our eternal identity is given to us by Krishna. And then we'll see with the soul's ears, hear with the soul's ears, feel with the soul's heart, taste the unlimited, ever-fresh nectar of transcendental variety in the land of consciousness. And as our love increases, we want to shower Radha and Krishna with that love and experience the full satisfaction of being showered with their infinite love and held in their embrace. So when we give ourselves completely to the perfect object of love, we experience ultimate joy, because why? Radha and Krishna become charmed by our selflessness and give themselves to us. They give themselves to us. We hear that prema, or divine love, is Krishna's guru, and he places that on his head. With the selfless prayer that Radha says here, she has fully captured Krishna. Finally, Krishna will fall at her feet and pray for her blessings. And that's described in many places in our Bhakti Shastras, how Krishna has become indebted and a servant, or a student in Radha's school of love, he says. And there's really a beautiful story portrayed in the life of Jayadev Goswami. He was a renowned 12th century poet and devotee of Krishna. And his Sanskrit work is called the Gita Govinda. It's considered a masterpiece. And it is a masterpiece from Sanskrit standard, from poetry standards. It is obviously, we know it describes the divine love between Radha and Krishna. And it really set a new standard for poetry, as well as kirtan and Indian classical music. And that poem itself has been inspired countless dramas and paintings and sculptures and musical compositions and pieces of art. And I was just reading recently that it also became commented on by brilliant scholars, because it was just like broke ground in the poetry world. Anyway, while Jayadev was composing the Gita Govinda, he was inspired to describe an especially humble act of Krishna. He imagined that Krishna would bow to Radha and place her lotus feet upon his head to demonstrate his love and reverence for her and his commitment to her love. So it's described that Jayadev wanted to write words, Dehi Padapalavam Udaram. That means, let your gentle lotus-like feet rest upon my head. But when he began to write that, he hesitated and he thought, how could the Supreme Lord, who is the master of all, bow to anyone, even Radha, by placing her feet on his head. So he was unsure of himself, and he took a break and left the house. And while he was away, Krishna himself appeared as Jayadev in his home in disguise and asked Jayadev's wife for ink and paper. And then he went about and he completed Jayadev's line, confirming his humility and love for Radha. And then Krishna, as Jayadev left the house, and when Jayadev came back, he sat down to continue his work. And there, oh my gosh, is the line I wanted to write. It's written. So he went to his wife, what happened here? And she said, well, you yourself came back and finished your work. And then Jayadev realized, oh, Krishna had come and written this line to confirm that he has this much love for Radha. Krishna calls Radha queen, but her own self-concept is she's a servant of Krishna, and thus she speaks this exalted verse in devotion. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that ecstatic devotion for Krishna will increase day by day for whoever hears these 8 verses of the Siksastakam. So let's hear them regularly and act on them by daily chanting Krishna's holy names. And I wanted to highlight one particular quote from the last chapter of the Bhagavatam. It's a beautiful statement. It says, when people properly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead or simply hear about his power, the Lord personally enters their hearts and cleanses away every trace of misfortune, just as the sun removes the darkness or as the powerful wind drives away the clouds. Those words describing the glories of the all-famous personality of Godhead are attractive, relishable, and ever fresh. Indeed, such words are a perpetual festival for the mind, and they dry up the ocean of misery. End quote. It's a nice thought to end on. We've now reached the end of Mahaprabhu's Siksastakam. In summary, in the early stages of sadhana bhakti, what we're doing is we're preparing a field and doing away with the weeds so that the bhakti creeper can grow unobstructed. Then the seed that was planted sprouts in Bhava Bhakti, and when it's cultivated further, it fructifies into prema. And hopefully now we can better understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very enthusiastic first call in the Siksastakam, where he says, Param Vijayate, Sri Krishna Sankirtan, all glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtan. And he says, please have faith in my words and take up chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we can do a 5-minute meditation on the holy name. And let's pause for a minute to set an intention for our chanting. And if you like to become centered, let's take a few deep breaths in and out. Breathing in calm, letting go of distractions. Becoming centered in the self. And if you like, you can close your eyes and allow a meditation to capture your interest. Perhaps even set an intention for your chanting right now. And we might meditate on how extremely soft-hearted Srimati Radharani is. Her heart melts in love for Krishna and all of Krishna's servants. One time, she heard pitiful crying at a distance. Very distressed over the sound of someone suffering, she sent a few girlfriends to find out what was wrong and remedy the situation. They discovered that some boys had cornered a jackal into a cave and were taunting it. So it was crying and crying. The girls shooed the boys, freed the jackal, and carried that lowly animal to Sri Radha, who held the jackal in her arms and then gave it a safe place to stay. Srimati Radharani may hear my own cries of distress as I'm being held captive in the material energy where I'm constantly suffering. How might I cry? How might she hear me? Well, we know she's immensely pleased with anyone who chants her beloved's name, and Krishna is thoroughly pleased when someone chants Radha's name. I'll gain their favor by chanting their names with attention. And if Srimati Radharani notices me, she'll help me. She's very eager to serve her beloved and uses everything that comes to her in his service. If I can receive her favorable attention, surely she'll happily think of a way to use me. As I chant, I'll take special note of Hare. There, she is present in the Mahamantra. I'll notice her appearance and perceive how she dances in the front, back, and all sides of her beloved Hari in the mantra. She has controlled Hari by her intense love, and she can show me the way of love. Deep within, an awareness of Srimati Radharani's very merciful nature grows in us, and a prayer swells. Oh, Srimati Radharani, when will you be served by me? Please consider me your servant. Please hear my cry. Please train me as an instrument of divine service. I offer my Atma to you and your beloved. Take me as paraphernalia in Krishna's service. Surely you would like to offer him a new servant. Oh, Srimati Radharani, please help me chant Krishna's pure name to please him. Oh, Sham, please help me chant Radha's pure name to please her. Kindly allow me to chant your pure holy names so that I may be able to please both of you. So we can chant for 5 minutes, thinking of Srimati Radharani and chanting to please both of them. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Miguel is here. Meditations. Hare Krishna. Would anyone like to ask any questions or make comments? Do you have any takeaways? Anything touched you today in any special way? Were you able to meditate on Srimati Radharani and the Hare and the mantra? Make connection with her. Haribo Yadana.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for another wonderful class. Much appreciated. One particular takeaway for me was when you told us that meeting devotees is a sign that our material existence is coming to an end. It's just a very hopeful thought.
Yes. And I'm not making it up. I can't remember which acharya said it at this moment, but it is described that when a soul comes in contact with Krishna's devotee, that is a sign that their material existence is coming to an end.
It's quite inspiring thought.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And one question I have is about the last verse itself. It's interesting. One of the devotees from Bhakti Center has been doing a Siksastakam series, and he wound it up this past Sunday. I think Brajatoshini was probably there, and I had my hand up, but there was no time. So it came up for me again today. Just so it's the highest mood of devotional surrender, right? And we hear things like you said today, no matter what he chooses to do with me, he's still my worshipful Lord. And sometimes we hear other things like, whether he kisses me or kicks me, whatever. So my question, and I understand it as a spiritual versus material thing, but I just kind of want to hear your take on how does this differ from abuse?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's like almost like the woman who, no, he loves me, that kind of thing. Um, can you say anything about that?
Yeah, well, we'd have to look more at the relationship between Radha Krishna, which I tried to bring out by uh, highlighting Krishna's response to that kind of love. It's not a love that is unreciprocated or abandoned. But what it does show is that we really do need to come to the point of being okay with whatever Krishna does. And I think a lot of us have had experience where there's difficulty in our life, and sometimes it's very serious difficulty. It's not like, oh, because you're a devotee of Krishna, you're not going to experience suffering. And so it's important to not have that as an idea. So Mahaprabhu, I think, is giving us that verse to show us, don't think it's all going to be easy. It's not that it won't be reciprocated. It's not that you're not loved, but it is the nature of the world that they're suffering. Krishna's, if you listen, you hear Krishna Lila, you hear the great devotees, how much they suffered, and they were like close to Krishna. So it's not ordinary suffering. Like there's in the 87th chapter of the 10th canto is where Yudhishthir, he's bewildered and he asks Narada, I think it's Narada, he asks Narada, what is it about devotees of Krishna and devotees of Shiva, right? You're recalling this now, that the devotees of Shiva are opulent and they have material happiness and they easily obtain it from Shiva. And what we see is that the devotees of Krishna, a lot of times they don't have anything and they're suffering. And Krishna said, you have to understand that, no, Narada said, you have to understand that Krishna is beyond the three modes of material nature, which means any interaction with him is not of this world. And he's trying to draw us out of this world. And he does that he's very expert for each individual specifically how to get us to remember him, to surrender to him, to really come to him fully giving the Atma. And sometimes it's quite difficult what he puts us through to get to that point of complete submission, of complete surrender, where I literally give my whole self without no take-backs, no qualms, no second guesses, nothing in the way of just I give myself to Krishna. That is a very elevated state, and it takes a lot for us to get there. So Krishna expertly uses our karma or whatever situation to bring us to that state. But it is because we're getting a higher benefit than what the devotees of Lord Shiva are receiving. So I think it has to be seen like what I said, Krishna thinks of Radha as the queen, and Radha thinks of herself as his servant. That's her self-identity. I'm Krishna's servant. So it's not a small task to get to there, to really think that, to really realize that, to act on that platform. And so we're being advised that we need to be prepared to go through tests to take us there. We're talking about the highest attainment, the highest possible attainment for a human being. Now you think of anything that you could attain as a human being in the material world and what you have to do to attain excellence in this or superiority in this or some exalted position or fantastic wealth or whatever it is. Just think of the endeavor that people make to get there. And we're talking about an eternal destination with the highest bliss, associating with God on a personal, friendly level. And we've been here for a long time with material impressions in our subtle body that are prohibiting us from going. And Krishna has to do the work of removing these things. It's not a small matter for us to do. So I think it has to balance. In other words, it's not abuse because he's aiming to give us the highest gift. And we need to put ourselves in the position to receive that gift and Sri Radha is pointing out this is the position to receive that highest gift. This is the position we have to gradually come to. And we're not going to come to it in one day necessarily, obviously. We've been trying for a while. And we're still finding the ways that we resist and that the contamination in the heart that we have. And there's work to do. It's just that simple. But it is not, it's just impossible really for us to conceive of spiritual emotion and what suffering what that suffering is, that it looks awful to me. It looks like, wow, that's a lot of anxiety, that's a lot of separation, that's a lot of intense feeling, a lot of tears. And it's interesting. I've thought about how I've cried many material tears. I've cried lots of material tears in this life, suffering and challenges. But it's almost like you have to cry those material tears to get to the spiritual ones. That's my experience. And it's not abuse.
Thank you.
What would you elaborate on about that, Yadanath Prabhu?
Well, I think something what came to mind as you were speaking just now was the idea of perhaps it's like a type of withdrawal. So he's for our benefit, he's putting us through withdrawal, which is painful, but the result of withdrawal is freedom.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess you could see it like that. Yeah. But it's not that he's putting us through the withdrawal. We are withdrawn.
Yeah.
Well, we're withdrawn, and he's trying to call us to him. And when we realize how withdrawn we are, we start feeling separation. And it's a position that we put ourselves in, isn't it?
Yes.
We're just, what's happening is we're just coming to realize what's actually going on. And I talked about that at one point in the class, is that you start, when you engage in the practices and you start seeing this knowledge is coming through devotion, and we start seeing reality. So we're getting glimpses of to what is going on that we're really been unaware of.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to think about that further. I appreciate the response.
Thank you for the question and the meditation, Yadanath. I'll have to think about it too. That's a good way to fold in the replications of our free will. Yeah, we're our whole existence is a repercussion of the misuse of our free will. And Radha uses it to say, I'm yours. I only want you. And the point is that he responds to that. That's what I brought up too. Casey wrote to you, Yadanath. Thank you for the question. Yeah, he responds. That's the point. It may not be, he may not respond immediately, as we may have ideas of how he should respond and when he should respond. That's not the point. The point is he does respond, and he responds at the time and in the way for our benefit. The association of devotees helps us to make our way through the challenges to get there. It's a nice meditation. Hare Krishna. Anyone else, or shall we? Oh, we're right at 7, so we're. I thought I was going to be shorter today, but I guess I wasn't. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for attending, for being with me, for allowing me to speak. It's really an honor and a privilege to be able to do it. And hopefully I'll become better at speaking and making an offering to the devotees, serving the devotees. That's my wish. So please kindly bless me And yeah, thank you again. I'll put up the recording on YouTube. I can get there, get it out of my mouth. Hare Krishna, be well, take care. Hare Krishna.